It's for you. It's you. Oh no. A bow tie? You need a bow tie or something? That's what I got. That's what I got.
I did bring a hard copy.
Good evening. This is February 12th, Wednesday, and this is a workshop. This workshop will be conducted in person in the City Council chambers and via remote video and teleconference pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 403B, 2D, and Section 6 of the Sanford City Council Rules of Procedure. And do we have somebody on the second seat here?
No, because Matt's going to take most of the night.
They've got a little while.
They've got a while to go.
He's got mine, his better, man.
But you only have 2 lines here compared to other people.
You'll want to know about them.
Okay,
I'm
Matt,
teasing you yet? No.
Matt, you can please introduce yourself to the TV land out there.
Thank you. My name is Matt Hill. I'm the Director of Public Works and City Engineer for the City of Sanford, Maine. I'm here tonight to present on our operations and maintenance budget, as well as our capital improvement program budgets for roadway and equipment maintenance. If I could just follow along with the slides. At this time, the department is not requesting any changes to our operational structure. As you were briefed last night by the Human Resources Department, we're pleased to report that we have those heavy truck driver positions filled with 2 people who have conditional offers currently in the works. So one of those is very close to completion, and the other one just started a couple days ago, but we're confident we can get them on board and get back to work here. So that's just a quick snapshot of our operational structure. With me in the middle with Pete Smith, and we've got our 5 divisions being the administration, the transfer, the highway division, which is most of the people that you see out on the street, the municipal garage, and our engineering division. So most of our positions fall under that highway division, who are the boots on the ground doing the hard work of maintaining the streets, potholes, ditches, tree trimming, flooding response, traffic control, all kinds of emergency response and public safety personnel. So, as I mentioned, we're not proposing any change in staff. The one outage that we do currently have remaining is a new position that was just changed over to chief mechanic in the garage. That was created as part of an intended transition plan in the garage. We have a supervisor in there who has not notified of retirement yet, but says it's in the future, and we want to create a plan for him to pass on his knowledge. So we created a chief mechanic position to get another person in there, fill that role, and then have no change in leadership in the garage moving forward, or no major shift. And we continue to have our construction inspector funded out of our roadway capital improvement program. He's already paying dividends out there with boots on the ground on the street, making sure that contractors are following standards. He actually caught a load of cold mix trying to be placed on our hot mix job earlier this summer, which was quite interesting. But well, because he was there, we were able to catch it before this cold mix had kerosene in it, which would have damaged the pavement. So as I'm going to elaborate on here, our operations and maintenance funding is absolutely more critical than capital investment, and that is a strategy that we've been talking to the council and the planning board for a number of years. I've got some slides on here that talk about why that's so important, but it's it's also apparent historically when you stop maintaining the streets and roads, things go backwards very quickly. So it is imperative that we keep the operation and maintenance, and if you want to do any adjustments, I recommend the capital program first. So this pavement conditions index, which is on the next slide, shows that for every dollar spent for preventative and routine maintenance up at that excellent side of the curve over time, you end up spending $6 to $10 on rehabilitation or reconstruction down at the end of the curve. So the x-axis is time, the y-axis is roadway condition, and if you can go in there and do preventative maintenance such as ditching the roads, crack sealing the roads, fog sealing the roads, you can keep the good roads good, and you can keep them good at pennies on the dollar. If you let the roadway conditions deteriorate over time, they start to take a deep slide once the road cracks open up and water starts infiltrating the roadway base more severely. And that's where your full reconstruction eventually is required down to the end of the curve. It's our goal to get the roads back on the top side of the curve and then maintain them, which politically can be very sensitive, because if you're living on a street that is in absolutely terrible condition and the next street over just got paved, and then you see 3 years later that street is now getting crack sealed that just got paved or reconstructed 3 years ago, it's a headache, because you're saying, why is that street getting treatment when mine is not? The reason is that reconstructed road is much more expensive to reconstruct, so we can do that only at a slower pace.
And Matt, a year ago, you even explained, and you might even be getting there, how you had to do the sides of the road so the water doesn't get under. And so I think we had a piece of equipment that we needed in order to do that and train people to use it and stuff, so it preserved the roads.
Yes, that was in our recently issued annual newsletter. We have a senior equipment operator who we hired on, Gary Schmidt, who was able to get in that new piece of equipment, the rubber tracked excavator, and has been revitalizing our ditching program. He's done great, and his knowledge and expertise have really shown, and we are starting to get those roads maintained through the ditching and keeping the water out of the roadway base, which is very important. So over the last year, I have been tracking the hours of the Highway Division through, next slide, please, the Public Works Department, and have created basically a program goal for our roadway maintenance. I sat down with the supervisors of the department and our operators and went through each of our maintenance categories and programmed out during any given week of any given month, how many hours per week should we be spending on our key roadway preservation methodologies. So under those are street sweeping, catch basin cleaning, potholes, tree trimming, shoulder leveling, which is bringing that gravel up to meet the pavement level, street sign maintenance, gravel road grading, roadside ditching, drainage repairs, roadside mowing, our yard maintenance, which I can elaborate on, is very important, preventative maintenance for the road, preventative maintenance for our equipment, storm response, miscellaneous complaints, and covering other divisions. So through that, we established what are the core duties, how many hours should we be spending on those a week, how many people do we have, and based on that and their assignment for each category, where are hours spent, how are they spent, and where can we address the highest priorities of the city. So with that current staffing, you'll see here that on the bottom of the table, there's about 26,000 hours of necessary work to do our core maintenance responsibilities. With our staffing on average of 10 in 2024, we only had roughly 19,000 hours available to do that work. So you can see there's about a 7,000 hour shortfall, and I'll address a little bit of some of the conclusions on that in just a moment. So the next slide, please. So with those tracked hours, I calculated a % complete for each of the efforts, and you'll notice the ones in red kind of fell short of our target, while some of the other numbers in black exceeded our target. There was reasons why we exceeded some of our targets, such as our a sweet street sweeper, say that 5 times fast, which was purchased through Maine DEP and York County Soil and Water. has mandated hours that they have to be out on the road sweeping for the removal of phosphorus from the roadway sand particles. Other things in the yard maintenance, we carefully track and police materials coming into our yards such that we are able to take the materials brought from the city's right-of-way and crush those into reusable materials that are a great value for the city of Sanford, and we're able to reinstall them as engineered roadway base. And of course, storm response ran over. And then you'll see at the bottom too, cover another division was at 2,000% of what we intended, which is kind of a math error because the ideal number for that is 0. So any number of hours is an overage on covering another division for the highway division. A lot of that was trying to cover our transfer station division, which was noted last night. We've finally got those positions filled, so we can hopefully stop all the lateral coverage over there. So changing those numbers, the percent complete will be changed with increase in personnel, and then on the far right is actual percentage of highway division time. So changing our priorities, it looked like most of our priorities were actually very close, but we can change those percentages by rearranging our priorities within the department. So the conclusion of the study, there were a number of conclusions, but amongst them was that average 2024 staffing of 10.25 employees, the equation doesn't balance until you get 16 employees. So we were program staffed to be at 13, which we anticipate being at 13 very shortly. We're not asking for any additional employees at this time, but we do note in order to accomplish our intended maintenance responsibilities, the math says 3 more employees. So any questions of that? I guess I'll pause at this point and just talk about operations and maintenance a little bit. I'll give you a chance to ask questions about O&M.
It appears that we're able to fill more of our positions this year, and I think that probably we're at least paying within the market now compared to what we were before. So I mentioned that before to everybody, that you're going to see our budget has gone up, and it's almost all the contracts that we already approved as a council. So just reminding people of that. And also, I think it's phenomenal, the job descriptions, I think, are more accurate and more understanding to what the job entails. So I think that probably helped too when I'm going online to be able to apply, for these jobs. Yep. I think that was great moves there for everybody involved in developing that.
There's been hard work all around. I want to thank the city manager and the council for the union contract that was negotiated. It was preceded by 18 months of labor management meetings, really ironing out a lot of issues that didn't even make it to the negotiation table ultimately. The other thing out there is the wages are adjusted. They're at or near market value now. But the reputation of the Public Works Department is changing. Like the morale is up and people know it. And we're starting to attract people from word of mouth. Hey, I like Scott. I know Scott. I want to work there because Scott works there. So we're starting to get those references. We're getting, as was mentioned last night, we're getting people from Sanford. And that's what a lot of the market analysis is bearing out, is that those people are here. Those employees are here. They're just currently like commuting to other jobs. If we can, make that job attractive enough for them to work here, we can employ our own citizens. So, we're getting a lot of those applicants now.
Well, thank you. And that does start with management and your leadership team. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Any other questions on O&M?
All set? Oh, Nate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Matt, I'm very happy to hear that these positions are basically almost full. I know that's been sort of a pain in the public works side for quite some time. My question for you isn't so much on the staffing or anything like that. There was a line item that I would like to hear a little bit more from you on. Looking at the Munis printout that looks like goes by item here. Particular, I'm looking at the supplies line.
Yes.
Because that is budgeted it went down, which I appreciate. It's down to 517,000, but it looks like last year or 2024 actual was 219,000, and we're at 41,000 now. Understandably, there's ebbs and flows in supplies, but Can you tell me what you are, like, the reason for that kind of request, given that we're basically, that's like over double what was used last year?
Yeah, so the lion's share of the supplies line is road salt. And that, fortunately or unfortunately, varies quite a bit. So we can essentially use the salt shed as a bank sometimes. If we have money left over at the end of the season, we try to stock the shed full. And at other times, if we're short on funds at the end of the year, it is what it is. At this point in the season, we've had a very late beginning of the winter, and now we're starting to get into it. We all have also run into a problem in the salt shed that the building was built in, was it 2012? And then the salt shed was built as part of the facility? Is that right? The salt shed was, I believe, built as part of the facility or near around that time, is that
Talking
right?
about the administrative building?
No, the salt shed out behind the garage?
Ever do anything? Not in my time.
Yeah, it's a rub building, it's got a concrete foundation that goes up
Get somebody shaking their head, yes, back there.
12 feet in the air. It's got a serious crack on the back of it. So we have intentionally been keeping it low so far this season so that we might hopefully get rubbed back in there to affect repairs. So we've been kind of dragging our feet on replacing the salt in it so far this season. You know, when we sit down to budget, we try to make our best guess. If it looks like, you know, we were under 1 year, we try to move the number down. If it was over, I try to move the number up. But we also try to be conservative such that we don't run out of funding.
Yep, I appreciate it. It's just with the large contrast between what was spent and what the request is, it's a question I feel like we could ask, so I appreciate that.
Oh, no. And the other thing, too, is that I think our department is a little bit in of a unique situation. If we have funding available at the end of the fiscal year, we've been very transparent about that. And we've said, you know, we'd love to turn this into roadway repairs. We'd love to return this to the public in a way that, you know, not only benefits the traveler, but also benefits our department because it's less expensive for us to go affect capital repairs than run out with a pothole patcher, you know, every week, which is much less of a headache on our crew. So if there are those funds available, you know, we're happy to utilize them in a responsible way.
And I believe this past year, the line item says transfer, that was 400,000 that was able to go into CIP, to the road, fixing the roads?
Yep.
Okay.
And there's a good list of roads that have some very happy residents on them.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, the lion's share of that transfer last year was the reduction in the salt used. So that's why you see such a large fluctuation on that line. They're actually budgeting for 500 tons less this year than prior years based upon the most recent 5-year average of utilization, so.
Okay, seeing no other comments, I'll head into the roadway capital improvement program. So back in, when was it, 2019? We'd had the roadway pavement condition index performed. We figured out that we were at, I think it was a 69 for average roadway condition rating. We worked with the council to come up with a target of where we wanted Sanford's average roadway condition to be. And we figured out, I think we wanted to raise about a point a year, something on that order. And we had the roads reassessed 5 years later, and lo and behold, we gone from a 69 to a 76. So that was that was a direct result of the council not only supporting a ramp up of the roadway capital improvement program, but also soliciting basically a construction bond for $6.2 million that was approved in November of 19 and then constructed in 20. So there's a major coordination effort there amongst the Public Works Department and our partner utilities. The logistics of such a massive investment were such that we could not just set in on any road and reconstruct it. We had to coordinate with our partner underground utilities and make sure not to pave over something that was potentially in bad shape. So a lot of that $6.2 million went to peripheral roads in Sanford and Springville that might not have otherwise received attention because there weren't urban utilities under those roads. So in that spirit, we had continued on that plan, and the plan at that time was to increase that $500,000 a year until we got to our target of $4 million annually. Last year, we did not do the ramp up. We stayed flat at 3 million. And this year, we are proposing to, again, try to ramp back up, albeit a little bit more slowly at 250,000 a year. So the proposed roadway CIP is 3.25 million. The CIP funding has been leveraged in multiple ways, many partnerships with Maine DOT, a couple with Federal Highway Administration and US DOT to get matching funds. So chances are, if you give me a roadway CIP 50 cents, I can generally turn it into $1 through Maine DOT. If you give me 20 cents, I can generally turn it into $1 with Federal Highway Administration under the bipartisan infrastructure law. So that's resulted in our raise grant plan to reconstruct downtown, which is on the walls around us, I'm happy to say. So, yeah, so the total match from outside of Sanford in 10 years of funding this program, 10 years ago, we were at, I think it was just over like 1.2 million. Today, we're at 3 million. But the total match from outside over that 10-year range of varying investment is 37.8 million coming from either Maine DOT or the federal government. So where we're at in the program right now is a lot of our arterials and collectors are in better shape. We're starting to maintain them as we promised to Maine DOT. But we still have that big backlog of the local roads that are not available for the MPI funding. They're not available for state match programs. So we're still forced to either maintain those or slowly reconstruct them. And as I mentioned before, we were able to reconstruct them at a slower rate because it's so much more expensive and it's so much of a better investment to go preventatively maintain those roads that are in good shape. So yeah, so there's been a lot of discussion on where the roadway CIP should go. I still think that, and would offer that we should stay the course. We should continue to ramp up, try to get to our original goal. There are going to be things, even with the massive investment with the downtown of that federal funding coming in, there's still going to be bells and whistles that Sanford's going to want for its downtown. The landscaping plan is something we've talked about quite a lot. Maine DOT had a recent negative experience up in Searsport where State Historic Preservation Committee came in and basically just tanked their plan of what they wanted to do to beautify their downtown because it didn't meet the historical nature of historical Searsport. So our fallback position with Maine DOT is that Maine DOT will give us like a blank slate. They'll reconstruct the roadway, the sidewalk, and give us the bare bones of infrastructure, and then it might be up to us afterwards to go in and decide what we want to do. That might mean cutting up the sidewalk and whatever needs to happen in order to get that done. Ideally, we would like to plan ahead of time and get that integrated with Maine DOT's reconstruction, but that might be considerable investment from the city of Sanford. So we are kind of hedging our bets and trying to not only plan to and save for our programmed match, our contractual match with Maine DOT, but also think about, what are the bells and whistles that Sanford really wants to do downtown. Steve has been doing a lot of that legwork with Sanford Net Fiber Optic, and we're even, we're talking about promotional efforts as far as like a time-lapse camera of reconstructing downtown Sanford, maybe have a video at the end or things like that. Just things that we could look back on and say, here's another one I've been investigating is a before, during, and after drone flights of the downtown, like just as promotional things, like here's what happened. So we're really trying to, not only make it an infrastructure investment, but also a promotional thing to re-incentivize. Because the intent of this has always been to revitalize Sanford's economy and make downtown a destination instead of someplace that you just have to travel through. So we've always had our eyes on the goal there.
I think it was the kids at the high school who did the drone flights of the high school construction project, so I don't even think you need to put much money towards that. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great project. They did a great job with the high school construction. They kept flying. They fly, once a week or once every few weeks?
Probably every other week. They were giving the construction notes for that week.
Yeah.
They do the flight.
They did a great
They
job.
look at the construction notes, do the flights, put the sound, and then use the construction notes to put the narrative in.
People loved it, so I think it's a great idea that you have. I just giving you an idea of how to accomplish it, I guess.
If you have the contact information for who did that, I'd be very interested.
So can I reemphasize a couple of points that Matt was making on the roadway CIP and the ramp up and such into that? I think we all knew that the $500,000 per year was aggressive, but might be difficult to maintain in the future. Excuse me. Last year was the first year came to that point. Couldn't ramp up the $500,000 last year. Kept it at the $3 million. But we're able to take $250,000 out of the downtown tax increment financing district because the debt service was almost completely paid off for that downtown district at that time. This year, we've increased the ramp. We put the ramp up to $250,000, so it gets us to $3.25 million. And we've got offsetting revenues in there of $500,000 coming out of the downtown tax increment financing because the debt service is completely paid. There's no further credit enhancement agreements associated with that. So by pulling that $500,000 in, putting it into the roadway CIP, concentrating that inside of the district, which is the downtown that it's supposed to be spent in, such as High Street coming up for this coming year, and then the raise grant after that, it's an allowable use and it's a good offset. The other point that Matt had made was that when the original pavement condition index and the engineering study was done and we came up with the $4 million per year is what we needed to put in to get us to the point of our streets being in a good state of repair, that was all pre-COVID. The difficulty is we know COVID impacted us on the cost of materials, labor. It has gone up. So, Matt, I don't remember what the revised number, but I know it was north of $5 million, in excess of $5 million that you need now to be the same as the $4 million before. That being said, Matt has made up that difference by and large for us by multiple MPIs and other initiatives with MDOT. Fantastic. It gets us there in the short term, but in the long term, we're running out of those roads that still qualify for MPIs. And we're back to just our local roads, and there's no leverage there. In other words, it's got to be our local dollars. So I just wanted to reemphasize those points because the strategy's been working in the short term. Long term, we've got to get back to our local roads, once we get done with the raise grant and such.
And once those local roads are fixed, we got to maintain them. We got to be out there ditching. We got to be out there, clearing limbs so the ice doesn't stay on the road in the winter. It's hard. It's the amount of, you don't want to hear this in the budget committee, but the cost of maintenance is infinite. It's just going to be forever. How long do you have to maintain that? Oh, forever. So we're also very wary when we take on those new responsibilities, is that the costs go on.
And I also want to recognize the council's exceptional work and going back to Public Works at year end, looking at the salary lapse and especially materials that weren't used, expended last year, putting that back in. That goes right to the worst of the worst of the local road list that we can go back in and try and salvage that would not have gotten there otherwise. So even though the cost have escalated, those kind of strategies are making up the shortfall, making up the difference. They've been good strategies for us, and hopefully we can continue to find other strategies like that in the future that gets us to that now $5 million point. So thank you.
And Matt, could you give an example of how much it would cost to do a certain distance of a road, like a mile or a half mile, or what would that cost? Because sometimes I get people say, well, why isn't my road done? But they don't want their taxes to go up. So I think when they see this $3.25 million, they think, wow, that's a lot of money for roads. We could do all the roads. Well, it's probably not what you think.
Right. So the philosophy within the paving world is the right road with the right treatment at the right time. So if you've got a brand new road, you're thinking about things, like I said, crack seal, fog seal, preventive maintenance. You've got a road that's like midway through its lifespan. You're thinking about more invasive, like light capital overlay, get a little bit more invasive, a thick overlay, a structural overlay. Then, your next option is, say, like a mill and fill, where you're taking the the first inch and a half or 2 inches off that road and then repaving it. And then even more invasive of that is like a reclaim, where you're taking the road material and you're grinding it all up and compacting it down. And then one step on that is adding a Portland cement to that to stabilize the base, then repaving it, and then there's your full reconstruction. So those are kind of like the menu options you have. And we know the conditions of the road as they go through are going to require those different treatments. And one wild card, though, is our existing infrastructure. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to try to say this in a clever way. Sanford has a natural advantage in that we're built on a large gravel aquifer. The ancestors of Sanford built these roads and had a good time of it because they could use those materials that were there naturally. It was bank run gravel, which is, if you've seen bank run gravel come out of the bank, it's rounded stone. And the trucks and vehicles that were on this road did really well because the trucks at that time were lighter. Well, technology is advanced. Now the trucks are much, much heavier. The fully loaded, say, truck full of gravel now, when it travels over that road, compared to a passenger vehicle, does 9,000 times the amount of damage. We're trying to be like very smart about how we maintain them, how we reconstruct them, be very selective when and if we do make a treatment like that. And then, you asked for an example. So the Bates Bowden Harvard neighborhood, streets had been on my list for a long, long time. The roadway was in terrible, terrible shape. And nobody had really given much thought to like why they were so bad. Just because they've been so bad for a long time. So we were just constantly sending the patch truck up there time after time after time. We got up there to reconstruct it, and there was only ever, in the thin spots, it was 1 inch thick, and then in the thick spots, it was like 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches thick. So by modern standards, the road had really never been done correctly. So those are the instances where we're going in and correcting not only what's really been baked into the road from the beginning, but also would have been overlooked by changing standards over time. So very happy to kind of get that neighborhood back up to standards, got a nice like conventional 3-inch thickness of pavement on there, and it should last a good long time. Working with the planning department and Sanford Housing Authority to come up with a future sidewalk plan, because we left an envelope there for future sidewalks. Should we decide to put them back in the meantime, it's a nice residential street where the kids are playing in it anyway, no matter where the sidewalks are. So, that's public service where you're just going in and trying to do good thing for a neighborhood. So,
Thank you. Any questions, Bob?
Yeah, I just, taking your point that maintenance is forever, and always has been, right? So I'm speaking to future generations, as I've done before. Not really future generations, but let's just say the next generation. Somewhere along the way, it's not our fault, but the ball got dropped in terms of maintenance of the roads. I say it's not our fault because we weren't in this capacity, all of us here, as the roads disintegrated. We came in at the tail end when we looked at it and said, "Oh my gosh, we've got to do something." So we've done something this generation, and it is to beautify our city, make our city more livable. It is for economic development. It is for all those things. Now we've done those things. I tell you, I'm 70 years old. I'm 71 years old. It's up to the next generation to not complain about the taxes. And honestly, I never saw the community step up. I didn't see a lot of opposition to the bond that we did for the roads. Most of the complaints that we've had around this, as you said, we haven't been able to move fast enough to fix people's roads. But we're getting there. So we've taken the step to fix the roads, and now it's the next generation's job to maintain those roads. And I don't know if they're maintained correctly. How long do they last? And generations, right?
Well, yeah, the conventional pavement design, there's two conventional pavement designs. One is 12 years and one is 20.
Okay. So for a long time.
But yeah, I mean, on any given road, when you reconstruct it, you want to be in there crack sealing between like years
Sure.
3 and 5.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know, and that's part of maintaining it.
Right, right. So the point is, remember this, it's fixed, or it's going to be, and it's up to you people who are coming along to keep it up, you know, and so it's time to step up.
One thing that's not talked about a lot is the drainage infrastructure. So a lot of our drainage infrastructure is actually turned over CSO that was gifted to the city when the sewer district was mandated by the state to separate. So, you know, some of the uncontrolled costs on River Street this year was that drainage that our consultant went through and said, you know, and we told the consultant, we want to keep as much of that drainage as possible. And we went through, and when you opened it up, it was just not worth keeping. And so our costs escalated because we didn't want to leave a junky basin under the road for the next person to come along.
And in a lot of cases, you're dealing with, what, 100-year-old infrastructure that's underneath some of these roads?
Easily.
So,
Easily.
you know, it's been, I hate to say ignored, it hasn't been properly maintained, let's put it that way. Some sections for a long time, some sections.
It's funny how wildly they vary. In some, I've opened up catch basins and manholes where there's 4 or 5 people standing around it as we try to get the cover off because it's stuck on there. And once the cover's off, everybody takes one big step back. And we've opened up other ones where just the masonry and the handwork was just immaculate. Just the masons and the people who crafted this infrastructure really knew their craft. And sometimes it's a shame when we have to tear it out anyway. But
Be happy, everybody, be happy.
Any other questions? All right.
okay. So the next one is the Equipment Capital Improvement Program. So every year I've got our fleet managed through our fleet management program. And then the actual repairs are affected and managed through our garage maintenance department and a program called iWork. So they have a fleet maintenance module that lets us track all necessary repairs as reported by the operators, prioritize those repairs, complete work orders, draft work orders, order the parts, receive the parts, schedule the truck to come in. The parts, the mechanic, and the truck all meet at the same time, and we effect the repair. The mechanic may pick up on other things that may or may not have to be done with the truck, short-term or long-term. And before the truck rolls out, it's given a quality control check, either by the garage maintenance supervisor or one of the mechanic's peers. And the truck rolls back out fixed and stays on the road a lot longer than was done before. We used to have a program where something would go wrong with the truck and everyone would go like this. So now everybody's accountable and it's working much more smoothly. So we do have a fleet that we've been trying to right size for some time. We try to be very proactive about culling the fleet. If there's a vehicle or a piece that we're not using actively, we want to sell it or get rid of it while it still has some value and get it out of there. I have disagreements with the people in my department all the time about the value of a bulldozer. But when you need a bulldozer, there's no substitute. So, we have those things. We've been very fortunate. We've participated actively in the DRMO program previously, which has had some great wins for us. It's had its failures too, but we've worked very well with the city manager and the fleet management team in order to identify and acquire aftermarket vehicles and equipment when necessary. They've gotten us to places where we never thought we'd be. We're very fortunate we were able to purchase the sewer district's vac jet truck, and now we're able to do things that we could never do before. So we're good partners with our utilities and sometimes reap those rewards. So basically, I've got our fleet programmed in here with a replacement timetable schedule, which is always changing. Our newest initiative is to try to spec and acquire what are called hook trucks, which are basically they're able to take a skid off the ground and bring it on to be basically a Swiss Army knife of fleet trucks. You could take that hook and drag on a pothole patching skid. You could drag on like a dump truck skid. You could drag on a water tank, things like that. So over time, if we had enough of these hook trucks, we could have the skids that are independent of the hook trucks and invest as trucks go by, not always replace like our one pothole patch truck because, say, the pothole patcher unit is still in good shape. Because the truck is a 2006 Volvo, we can't get parts for it anymore. So now the whole pothole patcher truck is kind of in jeopardy, even though the mechanism for keeping the hot mix warm and just, distributing it is still a good mechanism. So we're trying to be very smart about how we go about invest in our fleet. We have more need in the fleet than we traditionally get funded for, and through the process with the city manager and the finance director, they're recommending $750,000 for the fleet this year. Out of a total request is usually over $1 million. But with that, we would like to make an investment in those hook trucks and try to get going on interchangeable trucks, drivers that are capable of, again, mentioned, we're getting more Class A drivers now, so that's helped us out quite a lot. But yeah, this, and particularly with the fleet management program and identification of aftermarket vehicles, and everything we went through with the pandemic, where we ordered trucks and they waited and stalled us for 1.5 years and then finally told us that they weren't going to produce it. Just left a very sour taste in our mouth. We're still trying to get over that. And still really struggling to say, like, what's the worth of going out to bid for these trucks? And maybe these are available on the lot somewhere. So it just, when you spend 1.5 years or 2 years waiting for something, you get burned on it. It's something you don't want to repeat.
So what's the difference we're doing now so that doesn't happen?
We're trying to find more trucks off the lot.
Off the lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
These S-hook trucks, I'm 100% for. Is there any driver's license, separate requirements for these, or is it, where I'm going, right?
Yeah, so generally it's a 6-wheeler or a 10-wheeler will require that same CDL license, depending on the weight requirement, may require an upgrade from a B to an A. Yeah. As mentioned before, too, we've been very fortunate to hire a heavy truck driver who just came from being an instructor at a driving school. So we're the envy of our neighbors right now as far as being able to do that. And I think it was said last night that he just helped our mechanic get his A. So everyone's looking forward to more training and bettering themselves professionally.
Excellent. Any questions? All set? Okay.
The dump?
Oh, yes, thank you. Thought I was done.
Last but not least.
Yes.
No.
All right.
Oh, you have public protection too, don't you? Who has
No.
public protection?
Well, we're
Ronnie.
going to share it. We're gonna share it. All right,
got
so,
part of it.
yes, not to be forgotten, environmental services. So no proposed change to staff or operations. Again, it was mentioned, but I'll re-report that we are now fully staffed as of Tuesday with 3 Class A drivers at the transfer station, which has never happened before. It's going to allow us to really focus in on, each of the divisions can sustain themselves instead of having to interchangeably depend on one another. We were having to constantly pull from the highway division to backfill for transfer. And now the way we've got it set up with human resources, that environmental services not only going to hopefully pull their weight, but also have, on-call people to substitute in from time to time that are trained up as well. One thing that's also been a struggle at the transfer station is consistency, where you pull in with a load and you get charged a certain price, and then you pull in the next week with maybe the same load from a similar project and you get charged another price. We've developed a PowerPoint presentation for transfer station training that we're going to be giving to everybody at the transfer, talking about what the transfer is, why we charge why we charge the prices we do and why we don't compromise on price, so that the operators will have some confidence in assessing and charging for loads. We've also done a better job at conversions. If you've ever had to estimate length, that's, you know what 100 yards is, right? You probably know what like a gallon looks like. But if I told you like, hey, there's a yard of pavement sitting on the floor here in a pile, like, how tall do you think that would be? You know, how wide it might be? Like, so people have, it's hard for people to get a good concept of when it comes to volumes like cubic yards, 3 by 3 by 3. It's kind of a weird shape to imagine, but then you have to kind of broadcast that into the back of somebody's truck. So we've got those conversions now available on signs that we're going to be mounting shortly that says like, hey, a small pickup is actually 1.5 yards. So I think the math works out to like $42, which before, I walked down to one and he had just charged the resident $12 for a small truckload. So, that's actually 1.5 yards. That's like actually a lot more. So it's hard for them to justify that when they don't have the practice at estimating volumes. So it's just going to be easier to say like, oh, you got a small pickup truck, 1.5 yards. It's a large pickup truck, that's 2 yards. It's a large pickup truck with sideboards, that's 3 yards, and we can charge that way. We also charge by the contractor bag. So the other stuff on here is no news for now. I'm sure, as we discussed in the solid waste subcommittee, that there are some changes coming along, but at this point we don't have enough numbers solidified in order to be able to reasonably discuss them. No changes to pay as you throw for now, but I don't know how much you want me to talk about this, Steve, but just to suffice it to say that the industry is changing and that we're going to have to change too.
I'm thinking that what it needs to be said is, and I think you're saying it here, but make it clear, there's not going to be any changes, and maybe I'm wrong, as I'm thinking this through. We won't be making any changes in this fee structure until
Next budget.
June 26. I mean, when are these contracts going to roll so they'll have a July 1st this year?
July 1st of this year, yes. So as soon as we get the EcoMaine piece of it settled, and I get some movement on that from legal counsel this week. So as the solid waste committee knows, we'll be resetting what the sleeve price should be and making that recommendation to you. We haven't set that yet because we haven't finalized the price.
And as Matt said, it's way too early in the process of doing this. The subcommittee's looking at a number of different vendors for it. But I guess everyone be prepared for some changes in solid waste and recycling come July. And we'll be out ahead of that and let you know what those are going to be.
Any other questions? All right. I think you're done.
That was fast.
You can stay here for public protection, in case you have any questions.
Yeah, he's staying for part of this, your presentation. We always look forward to your presentations.
Oh, I'm sure you do, Becky.
They're fast and furious. Go for it.
Well, I've got to make up for the hour that Matt just used. What happened to the Cliff Note version of your presentation? Did you forget that?
Carried away.
Anyway, the public protection account is a combined account that includes street lighting, electricity, maintenance, hydrant, snow removal, and hydrant rentals. Again, this is a shared account with Department of Public Works, Parks, and the Fire Department. This account was implemented in 2017, and from my perspective, it works well. This year, we added $10,000 in non-contract services for maintenance costs to streetlights and traffic lights. The contract services line is up a minimal amount of $12,000, which is an increase in the hydrant rental with the water district. There's a slight increase of $1,200 in the snow removal line for hydrants. The current contract with JMS Construction finishes this year, so he did send me a proposal, a 3-year extension. In the first year of that extension includes a $1,200 increase. I know the manager and the fire chief are in discussions about this contract right now, but in the meantime, I did add the $1,200. There is no increase to the utilities line for Department of Public Works or Parks and Recreation in this account. Matt, Brady, and Scott are here if you have any specific questions to the individual items.
Yeah, so the one that I want to talk about is the hydrant snow removal. The contractor that does it now, every snowstorm, he's been doing it about 40 extra. And so I'm not terribly upset that he's charging more because he's right out there right away. So I don't have an issue with the service at all. So that's kind of what I'm saying. I know we're cutting and looking at budget, but that's really not out of line for what the service he's been bringing us. And I publicly wanted to say that, and I thank him for doing hydrants that are not his. So on the storms that are done, he's been out there pretty good. So if you guys want to go on about the hydrants, I'd like to be informed.
So I wasn't part of the first contract. I've been watching it. We pay a set amount of money, whether it snows or doesn't snow. So he's fronted all the money up front, or whoever has the contract. At that point, the way the contract's written, I think we have some leverage in writing a more creative contract to be more tailored towards our general weather down here than how it's already proposed.
Is there a big difference, or is this something that's going to be later on?
It'll be later on. Okay. We have a placeholder now to hold the contract, but I wholeheartedly think it's something that we should look into how it's implemented, not just to have it.
Thank you, appreciate it.
568,
Wow.
509.
You ever successfully done an adopt a hydrant program? So many people actually shovel out their own hydrants. Anyway, but.
Or pay per storm, or I think there's other,
Huh?
I think there's other things that we can look at.
All right. Any other questions? I think I think we're moving on now. Great report. It's quick, sweet.
She's a hard act to follow, those of you who are coming after her. I can't correct the befores.
And now let's move on to Brady and for Recreation.
I'm Brady Lloyd. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation. I'll give you a quick update on our current programming. We have pickleball, volleyball, basketball, line dancing, toddle time, and a walking program going on. Upcoming, we have February vacation camp, April vacation camp, and summer camp. And just a quick overview of the gym. It is booked nearly 13 hours a day, and that has been from the end of September, and that'll be through mid-March, give or take. Staffing, we have 3 full-time positions, the Director of Recreation Supervisor and Administrative Assistant. Our Admin Assistant also is shared with Facilities and the EMA program. And I just wanted to note, just like many other department heads have, our increased salaries have been impacted by the union CBAs that were approved. So we got hit again because we had a position move from salaried to hourly, so we also had to budget OT on that front. We have added and I shouldn't say added, we've extended a summer supervisor through the 9 weeks of summer camp. So this will give us a second set of supervisory eyes to help manage the 5 different locations we have with roughly 225 kids spread over the city. So this is a very important position to us, and I'm hopeful that this will also help aid in the overtime money to be able to stagger the 2 supervisors. One starts early in the morning and gets off a little sooner. The other starts later in the morning and goes through the end of the day. We hire roughly 45 seasonal staff for our 5 camps. Minimum wage impacts, we had an increase of 50 cents this year, and that impacts our Counselor 1 position for a total of $1,352. Next up is Memorial Gym. A quick overview, we have a revenue stream of just under $11,000, And that is just for space that's rented. That's not including our programming. So we have 6 more full facility rentals on the schedule through June, although 4 of those are on the cleaning costs only list, including the water ski show, which will be coming up in front of you next week to ask if they can be added to that list again. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that. Most of our rentals are birthday parties, court rentals, craft fairs, boxing, and we've had some homeschool time in the afternoon.
So Brady, quickly,
Yep.
because we were discussing this earlier with the agenda meeting, cleaning only is not working, I don't think. Fees are high for a lot of these groups. There has to be, I would love to have a number that I think is appropriate, because they're making money on these events, and it's, you know, we're trying to maintain a facility, a number that falls between our full rental, which a lot of people are balking at, you must admit, they're balking at it, and something reasonable. So the full facility should be reasonable for people who are profit-based, and the other rental shouldn't be as cheap as cleaning.
Yep, I agree. I think this should be revisited as well.
Yeah, I think we went way too low, and I just think it's too costly of a facility to
Yep.
maintain, to keep it that cheap. So when it comes to the ski facility, I'm gonna want a recommendation of something much higher than the cleaning fee.
Yep, so last year they went, and we can talk about this at the meeting, but last year, I believe you guys gave them a discount of 50%, so they paid $600. But
But they're going for cleaning only, which is
Correct.
$185, so.
135, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we can continue to do that. The building costs taxpayers money, and so there's got to be a reasonableness to it, because if everybody got it free because they were a community centered for the children, then, you know, raising money, then we would never make any money from that building, and it would cost a lot.
Yep.
So I have to agree with Maura that we now are going to have to switch around and start charging for different events. As hard as it would be to charge some of our friends, we're going to have to probably start to do that.
I agree. Programming-wise, we've brought in, and this is from roughly the end of September through current, $24,500, and that's pickleball is the majority of that, line dancing, volleyball, basketball, and total time. And I wanted to touch on a couple of projects that we have going on. We have some HVAC and doors issues happening right now. That's in our operating budget of $15,000 just about. We have a couple of heating units that aren't blowing hot air that need to be fixed, and we have some doors that are unable to lock normally. So we need to get those secure so the building's secure.
So how are you securing the building now with those doors?
So we have a sign that we stuff in between the hardware so it cannot be pulled open.
Is that legal?
I'm just answering the question.
Okay.
We,
Well, I
we
can tell
pull
you it
that-
probably
we pull that
isn't.
sign when we're open.
Okay, so yes, I would say get the doors fixed.
Yes, we're in the process of that.
And the only reason I know that is our custodians used to use a chain around the lower doors in our school. When I became the principal there, I found out he was chaining those doors. So if there was ever an emergency, people could never leave. That way, those are push bars that you can quickly get out of a building. So I just thought, when you mentioned
I won't tell you about
that.
our other doors then. We're in the process of getting that looked at. We've got
Jamie
an
isn't
estimate out
listening
there. He's
anyway.
not.
Okay.
He's not listening. So that's what's in there for the operating budget for those two new lines. That's building maintenance and building equipment. And then a couple of projects for the gym. I'll start with the gym floor. It's been very slick. I spoke with the former athletic director. He thinks it's been roughly 20 years or so since that gym floor has been refinished, and there hasn't been any preventative maintenance done on it since the new high school has been built. So we've had some injuries during pickleball due to people slipping, so this is both an upgrade to the facility, but also a safety measure for people to continue to use the
Did we
court.
ever buy a mat for the floor?
We have a mat, and the mat will get used a lot more once the floor is not in the condition it is in. Yep. So that's in there for just under $40,000. It's the same company that Nasson used to put in their new floor, and they do a preventative maintenance contract going forward for a couple of grand each year. That's not in our budget now, but will be in our budget in the future to touch it up so it can last longer. And then lastly, for CIP is more roof membrane talk. They did a moisture scan this past fall, and there's roughly $14,000+ that they know that needs to be replaced. They suggested adding some more money into this line because we're going through another winter, and there's going to be more damage with that, with the moisture entering it. So it's a cost of removal per their contract at $10.64 a square foot. So that's in there for Memorial Gym, and that's recreation if you have any questions.
Any questions? No? All right. Go ahead,
Just,
Bob.
can you, just refresh my memory what's going on with the roof?
Yep.
I mean, I know the roof was in bad shape at one time. You've made progress on that, and just bring me up to speed on that.
The roof, the replacement project is set to start this spring. I don't have a firm date, but this spring.
Whole new roof?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. Each part, I think there's 8 different parts of the roof, and each part will be replaced.
And you're not going to refinish the floor before you fix the roof?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That's recreation. Next is parks. Again, the union contracts impacted this budget with the salaries. So we have 1 parks supervisor and 2 parks maintenance workers. And I just wanted to let you guys know our parks supervisor, Brian, is retiring in April. And we're also losing another one, most likely Kendall, in the fall of 2025. So there's going to be some turnover within this department. And again, the park supervisor position was a salaried position, and that moved to hourly with the new CBA. So there was overtime that needed to be budgeted for that as well. We have 7 seasonal staff. We have a hard time finding people that want to work the full 40 hours, so we've been piecing a couple people together for each position. That's been working well over the last couple of years, and I'm hopeful that that can continue. We have an item in here talking Little League. It's $4,700 to resod the infield. This includes the install. I reached out to Little League and let them know that this was a talking point, and they voted at their last meeting on Monday that they will be willing to split this cost with us. So it will really be a cost to the city of $2,350 going forward if this is kept into the budget. And then CIP for parks, we have a truck replacement for a little over $70,000. We will, and this is for this. We're going to be swapping out and selling an 18-year-old truck, hopefully getting roughly $10,000 back. And we will be purchasing an F-350 chassis cab with a V8 engine plus a dump body. I'm not a big vehicle person, but it's going to be a good truck for us, I was told. We also have a Z-Track mower in there. This was cut from last year's CIP. It's just under $13,000 or $14,000, and this will replace another mower, which we don't believe is going to make it another season, and this will be used at multiple parks and facilities around the city. Trail CIP dollars, as I've said in the past, the committee is not getting much younger. They're contracting more work out, so that's why we have not increased this line, but that's why it has increased in years past. And we will be using the TIF money to offset this amount, so it should not impact taxation. And almost lastly, Heritage Crossing. A lot of the lights are starting to fail down there. We had our electrician there, and he estimated that it's going to cost $2,000 per light. It's the LED panel inside the dome that needs to be replaced. Our thought is to do 3 per year, so that's what your $6,000 figure is here, and there's roughly 35 to change, so it's going to be in the CIP program for 10+ years.
Okay.
And lastly, we cut the Go and Park tennis courts again this year. They're closed. They're in awful condition. We had a company here, I believe it was in 2023, to crack, seal, and repaint, and they told us we'd be wasting our money in doing so because the courts are so far gone. It's a huge figure. The quote I have is $525,000 for a company to redo. And that was from 2 years ago, so I'm assuming it's probably closer to $550 now. I think that our best bet going forward is to close out the Carpentier Park project and then go after future LWCF money to attack this project.
If we get funding for that, I'm assuming you would potentially split that between tennis and pickleball?
Yes, yep. We would probably keep 1 or 2 tennis courts and then convert the rest to pickleball. Yep. And I believe that was part of an LWCF project way back when. That's what their website says, but there's no, just has a location, no other information.
Well, I'm just thinking if we're going to go after the funding, think of the best multi-use that we can come up with for
Exactly.
that, because, you know, tennis is still a great sport, but not as much as it used to be.
Yep, and we also have the new courts down at the high school too that we've been directing people to.
Yeah.
Pretty much used quite a bit from our citizens.
The tennis courts?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Maybe we
I could
should-
check in with the athletic director.
Let's try to find out,
I know
because if there's
pickleball
not a
is-
huge, we could just go pickleball and just have one tennis court or
Well,
something.
you can line
Yep.
for both potentially, and
Yep.
then have netting of, like, you can figure out a way to line for both and have the netting that you need for both, so
Yep.
that it's possible to do both on that.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm sure if you threw a basketball court too, they'd be crazed for that.
Yep. I think pickleball is the future compared to tennis. But I do respect the tennis community, so I'm not looking to get rid of all tennis courts. I do think keeping one is smart. That's it for parks.
Thank you.
Well,
No
are you
questions?
doing
I've got Oakdale too.
He's doing it.
Sorry, one more. We have 2 seasonal staff at the cemetery, a superintendent and a laborer, and you will see this year, there's 71,000 and change in there for masonry projects. We met as a board, and this is going to be attacked by splitting the projects into 3 years and using the perpetual fund to offset these projects, so it's not hitting taxation. So that's the goal.
Big plans for the
Any questions?
No, I see none. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. All right, and for general assistance, Vicki? And I know how you like to present.
I knew you were going to say that. Good evening, my name is Vicki Martin, the Director of the General Assistance Department. This is going to be easier than last year because I'm not here asking for anything. So it's just pretty much an update on the department. We are currently staffed with myself as the director, 1 full-time caseworker, and 1 part-time caseworker, which thank you for giving me that extra person last year. It's perfect staffing now. As you can see, these numbers that we put in here reflect everything from July 1st of 2024 to January 31st, 2025. We have processed 296 applications, or it brings down to 42 per month, which is 10 a day, and it takes about an hour an application, so you can see that we're booked every day right now. There was a couple days, I think it was last week and the week before, that we actually did 24 applications, the full-timer and myself, and 24 each day, like 4 days in a row. So we've been busy, but it's starting to kind of level off now. So just to break down on the numbers, we did budget $950,000 for non-contract services for fiscal year '25. That is currently down about $234,000. December, unlike what Steve, in January, Steve, were tough months. We have paid a lot of hotel money to put our homeless people into hotels. So the budget was doing really, really, really good, and then December and January hit. So like I said, most applications currently, I would say 9 out of 10 are housing and emergency housing. And again, it does take us to do A to Z, a good application, filing, making sure everything's ready for an audit, about an hour per application. So doing 10 or 11 a day or 24 a day that's all we're doing right now, is just applications. So, but other than that, like I said, we're hoping to bring down the fiscal year '26 projection to about 700. I think a combination of that was maybe me overdoing the budget last year, where we were not sure what was going to go on still with like the new Manor, how many people are going to come in. It is a little difficult to budget that non-contract line because, as we all know, we don't know what's going to happen in the next year, so we're just trying to pull off of previous year's numbers, things that we've been looking at. But Steve, Ronnie, and I do every month look at the numbers right to the penny as to the report so that we know where we are at any given day. So that's where we're kind of tweaking these numbers as we go along.
Are hotels possible in the winter because they come down to a monthly rate to accommodate some of these situations, or,
They're very, very expensive for general assistance.
but there's a cap?
There's a cap, well, there's a cap. The state law right now is,
Not for the first 30 days? of
right,
emergency.
right,
Okay,
the
gotcha.
30-day thing throws it, because if you've never received general assistance, you could be putting somebody up for 30 days.
Yeah.
If they've received it in the past, ever, you can only go up to their cap maximum amount.
Okay.
But putting them in a hotel is extremely expensive to general assistance. And the hotels range from, we got one that will give us a room for about $400 a week, and then the other one is about $1,200 a week. So one's $400, one's about $685, the other one's about $1,200.
So are we seeing a lot of brand-new applicants, and that's why the 30-day emergency?
A lot of them, unfortunately, that previously didn't come out when we tried to assist them in the past. When York County Community Action, when we had the hub set up at Sanford Housing, they didn't come out. Of course, the cold comes along, and they're coming out now.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So, like I said, December and January numbers
But their
probably
situation,
doubled from what we were doing.
but their situation would be different next year because they won't be first-time applicants.
Correct. Provided the state doesn't change the rule again.
I doubt it.
No, they're making some, I believe they're going to make some major changes to GA this
Yes.
session.
Worse or better, or?
They're going to reduce it. They're going to reduce eligibility for
They're looking
a
at
large number of areas.
Wow.
I mean, I can't go into a lot, great detail, but it looks like what they're trying to do is make it so that whether it's new, returning, that you cannot get any type of assistance at all more than 3 times in a 12-month period. Unless you have a pending, like, Social Security application, because those are taking right now about 280 days to hit their first round of decisions. We all know they get denied the first time, then they have to start the process all over again.
The disability, social.
So we have Social Security applicants who have been here since I was a caseworker 4.5 years ago. Just no fault of their own, it's just the Social Security process is holding them up. But typically, other than that, we don't have, Sanford does not have a huge returning clientele. We work pretty hard at getting them to work or whatever they need to do to kind of get back on their feet. So,
So I will express my frustration in the amount of time that our staff has to spend on investigating the cases. Did they come from someplace else? Have they applied someplace else? Because there is no statewide database. The state's supposed to have that in place by this June,
July 1st.
July 1st.
Yeah. I don't think it's happening. And like Steve said, it's very difficult because you're going off of the word of the applicant. We have a list of questions that we can start with that probe us into other questions and this and that, but there's nothing, like Steve said, for us to look at. And it's very difficult with the caseload that we have to sit there and call all municipalities around us, every person that walks in the door,
So I'm
to see if
wondering,
they
like,
really have gotten assistance.
How many phone calls are you fielding as other people are calling you to double check to see if they've applied here?
They don't call. In general assistance, the rule, I hate to say it pretty much, is you got to trust the word of the applicant. I mean, they're signing off that they're telling you true, correct, complete information. You just don't have the time right now. And unfortunately, around us, Biddeford, Saco, they're probably doing pretty close to what we're doing right now. So they just don't have time to call. So you're just putting it through and hoping that they really didn't get assistance somewhere else. And we've been pushing, like Steve said, for that database since I was a part-time caseworker 5 years ago, and it's still not in place. So hopefully it'll be coming, but I don't think it'll be here by July. So.
Bob?
Yeah. Just a quick question. Is there a way for you and the surrounding communities where this is a significant economic impact like it is here in Sanford, is there a way for you to put together your own list? Half a dozen communities or something like that. I don't know if that's legal because obviously it's personal information, but is there a way to do that?
Find some to build a database. I mean,
Right.
if you want to do it really well, you'd want to have some sort of a database.
The only way that we kind of do it right now is we'll wait on somebody. I mean, luckily the full-time caseworker that we have knows 9 out of 10 people who walk through our door. The ones that we may question, I will send out a bulk email, it's like you said, Biddeford, Saco, Wells, Shapley, not necessarily Acton stuff, but, and we all do kind of work together. I would say Biddeford and us work close together as more than probably the rest of them.
Yep.
But I do send out that bulk email saying, hey, I have so-and-so here. Have any of you come, waited on this person? Right now, that's the best that we could be doing, because we don't have that computer system.
Okay.
But we do try with the email.
Yep.
Pete?
I'm at the very first line under general assistance utilization, permanent housing. It's the new main it's been going up. Is that just because of like heating assistance or something? And is there a time frame where that falls off for the
The permanent housing you'll see will go up because many of them have moved out of that temporary, out of the hotels, out of bunking with somebody else, into their own housing now.
Yeah.
So what happens with a general assistance application, it's a 30-day snippet. It's a 30-day time period. So we have to look at what happens in this 30 days, they come back, what's going on at that 30. So we're always looking at what is their situation within the 30-day application that they're currently doing. So we could pay on somebody, I'm going to say in January, $1,000, but January 15th, they go to work and they start having income, we're going to pay a little bit less in February.
right?
So it just depends on that 30-day application's numbers as to what we could be paying. Some of that too is, whether it's right or wrong, you got a lot of people who were 2 or 3 or 4 people might have been in one unit.
Yep.
Well, now this one's found a place on their own, so they got their own place, and this one's moved out. We've had a lot of that lately. A lot of them no longer living together.
And that's a 2-year time period to help new mainers when they come in or something like that?
That's the maximum they can get, correct.
Okay, just to clarify for,
Yeah.
all the taxpayers that they know that.
That's like you said, it's 2 years once they start the immigration or asylum process.
Yeah, once the ticket starts.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Allison, and after Allison, we'll take a 5-minute break.
Good evening, I'm Allison Navia. I'm the airport manager of our Sanford Seacoast Regional Airport. As you all know, the airport operates a really highly regulated piece of property in the city. We've got federal, state, and local laws that we need to follow. And I just wanted to give just a quick thumbnail sketch update of the breadth and depth of the stuff that goes on down there and what the budget covers and what it entails for us to do on that piece of property. So we've got our paved areas. That's of course the most important part, the runways, taxiways, ramps. We do painting of that. We do all of the airfield maintenance. We do foreign objects and debris control, so anything that's out there, constantly inspecting for that. And then we also crack seal twice a year. So that makes us unique among other airports. They usually wait till it's catastrophic, and then they get a grant and they have an outside contractor come in and crack seal and paint. So we keep ahead of it by doing it every year, and that also keeps us with our business plan of setting the standard for maintenance and safety with those things. There's also the unpaved areas, so even these are very highly regulated. There's safety areas, there's object-free areas, there's runway protection zones, there's vegetation management that we need to do in all of those spots as well. And you can't allow ponding. There's all sorts of regulations in each one of those of what is allowed and what is not allowed. Anything that's in there needs to be on a frangible coupling, so any of the signs and lights and all that stuff needs to, if an airplane hits it, it just goes tink, and it's designed to just break right off. So everything is very particular out there. We deal with all of our base tenants. We've got commercial and private. We've got the most based aircraft of any airport in Maine, about 146 at last count, and more coming. We've got 38 on a waiting list. We deal with security, so that's fencing, gates. We run an access program for gate access through all the different gates, and for all the contractors that come in to do work, they all need to go through my office and get training. And then we manage all of those cards of who still has access and if we need to deny any of those. We take care of obstructions. This doesn't only include the obstructions that are on our property, so going out and trimming brush and things like that if it gets too high. But I also work with the Planning and Codes Department for plan review, so anything that's in that development zone that's anywhere near the approaches, I review those plans and provide letters for all of those developments too. So a lot of people don't realize even though you might not be right next to the airport manager still looks at the plans to make sure that you're not going to plant a tree that might eventually grow too high or have lights that interfere with aircraft and all those kinds of good things. So that takes place. We've got navigational aids, lights, signs. All of the lights and signs are pilot controlled, so they're not just regular lights like, it's kind of like the street lights, how they're all programmed, but we have to go in there. So for instance, the guys have been working on troubleshooting one of the boards because the pilots actually use the radio to turn the lights on at night, so that saves our power bill. And if that board that controls that on any one of those hundreds of signs is off, they need to diagnose that and take care of it. So we take care of all the utilities on the airport that way. We do all the snow and ice control and all the working with tenants on those. There's an emergency plan. That's for not only the accidents and incidents that you think of, but security incidents. We've had, since I've been there, a number of vehicles drive through the fence. There's bird strikes, deer strikes, those types of things. Those are incidents. So any of the emergency control type of stuff we have to deal with as well. We implement the business plan that you approve. There's fuel, so hazmat that is associated with that. There's a spill control and containment plan. We have to make sure that all the tenants that have anything to do with fuel, anything greater than 55 gallons is taken care of. We have a stormwater management plan, so that's the stormwater pollution prevention program, and a contract with Kennebunkport Wells Water District. We do paperwork for them. We do quarterly inspections and monitoring at all the different outfalls, and keep track of all of that type of stuff. And then DEP has had us install soil filters all around the airport for various projects over the years, and those have reporting and maintenance that go along with those too, and saving the city money rather than having an outside engineering company come in and do that for thousands of dollars. We have convinced DEP to let us be trained so that we can maintain them and we can do those reports. So we do take that on. We do an inspection program, so a self-inspection program that has a paperwork component to that of every day inspecting the airport. There's a wildlife hazard management program that involves state depredation permits for anything that you would usually need a hunting license for. We have a permit to be able to take, and then also a federal migratory bird permit, and both of those things have quite a bit of paperwork that go along with them, plus the implementation of the plan and a wildlife log. So even if the guys go out there and they just harass the geese and chase them off, they log that where they were when they did it, so we can kind of keep track of what the trends are and things of that nature. So there's paperwork that goes along with that too. Pedestrian and ground vehicle rules and management, that's kind of one of those constant battles where you're dealing with tenants and reminding them what the rules are after they forget. Airport condition reporting, that's the notices to air missions. So whenever you go out there and plow, we have to keep track of the conditions on the runway, the type of contaminant, where it is, and then also braking action. So we report braking action to pilots. I do, of course, all the receivables and payables, and all the mail, all that type of stuff. And then we have an airport committee as well. So that's all the routine stuff. Non-routine are capital improvements, economic development initiatives, all the airport improvement program grants and other types of grants that we've done, like, for instance, the emergency management. Compliance issues like land releases that we'll be talking about this year with the shooting range. Contracts and leases, legislation, which I had fun today trying to deal with. Outside work, skills, so we've taken up a couple of different projects now to go paint other airports with the skills that the guys have with the paint machine, and that facilitates us to buy things instead of putting them through the capital plan and using taxation. So we kind of pay our own way with a couple of those things, and we get to help out other airports, so it's kind of neat to go, say you painted multiples of them. There's various boards that we participate on too. I'm the chair of the Aeronautical Advisory Board for Maine DOT, on the Maine Beaches Association Board with Keith from the Growth Council, and I'm the vice president of the IDC as well to keep plugged into everything that's going on, so that helps. And also I just wanted to mention the maintenance supervisor, self-motivated. He obtained his master applicator license for the for the airport to be able to take care of itself. And that's another thing where with him having that, we're able to now make extra revenue off the solar because we do herbicide application on their fence line for them. So that's an extra between $7,000 and $12,000 a year of revenue that we're able to make because he has that capability. So very proud of him for doing that. We do have our economic development strategies. Those are working. Our operations were up 5.8% last year, so that's 2021 more estimated takeoffs and landings. Those are good because that is typically more itinerant traffic, but the more people that are flying in, the more fuel sales that they have, which generates more revenue, but it's not necessarily more wear and tear on the airport itself. So if they're taking off and landing, that's kind of minimal. So it's nice to see those extra operations taking place. So that's just a really quick overview of the work. The staffing that we have to do that is 3.5 employees. So we have one administrative person that you're looking at right now. And then there's a maintenance supervisor who's full-time. We have a maintenance worker who's full-time. And then we have a part-time year-round 20-hour per week person that's working out very well. And then seasonal help for snow removal. So that's the dream team there. For operational costs, I've already kind of gone through those. We're up a little bit this year, so if you take away the salaries and all the costs that are associated with your human capital, we are asking for an increase of $5,528, and that's mostly replacing the track on the skid steer, which we used for quite a bit of that maintenance of the solar project, and then repainting some of our implements. So really between those two things, that's the difference. So we are truly looking at it's not a turn the page, it's a photocopy the page budget. It's very similar year over year, just with the costs of course, like I said, the personnel is what makes the difference on that one. We've talked about the CIP at a couple of different council meetings so far in property sub. We're doing phase 2 of the master plan study, so this will be the one where we look at airfield geometry and see what projects we'll do for the next 20 years when it comes to that and what kind of grants we'll go after. And we're going to design and permit the perimeter road and taxiway if we can get a grant for that. And then the fuel farm inspection, and that is completely covered by fees that we receive from fuel sales, so that doesn't hit taxation for that CIP piece.
Are there any questions?
No, I think we've had a lot of Allison in the last.
A lot of airport stuff.
I noticed the meeting I missed, it was mostly you when.
But that's okay, because you were on the airport committee, so you already know.
And I do want to say a couple of things, that you have changed the look of the airport because you are very innovative in creating ways to bring funds into the airport. So it's less of a burden on the taxpayer year after year when you look at your budget. So I congratulate you on that. The other thing to point out to people, because you mentioned revenues, by the rules that she has to follow, all the revenues you earn have to be spent at the airport. We're not allowed, Sanford is not allowed to take any of that funds and put it in roads or put it in parks, or it's totally for the airport. And that's not just Allison saying that, that is the rules that she has to follow because it's an airport. So you have a different set of rules than the rest of us.
The good news is the property tax value still goes to the general fund, so there is that benefit.
Yes.
The more hangars you see going up out there, that's not a new family that's going to send people to the school and use a lot of the services. It's just good tax revenue that goes to the
I like to congratulate the past Sanford Town Meeting too, because as Biddeford was saying, we don't want to spend money on their airport, the Sanford Town Meeting was saying, yeah, that's fine, we'll do that. They supported the airport.
Yes.
Which is a complete reversal of what Biddeford did, and, now we get to reap the benefits of it. It's finally in the black.
Yeah. All right.
Is there a quick report on the work session today? Did they have understandings of the species of special concern?
They couldn't understand what the problem is.
Yeah, I figured.
Whoa. Are they pilots?
Is my face getting red? It was so infuriating to sit there.
Usually is, yep.
Yeah, and they don't let you talk. So
They did the work session?
they did the summary of all the testimony and everything, and when he did that, he looked right at the paper that said Wildlife Hazard Management Plan, and said, yeah, it's right here, it's the Wildlife Management Plan. and left out the word hazard, because that's how, so what they end up doing, just as the high level, because from the last council meeting, was FAA tells us, of course, you need to manage the airport and all of the property to dissuade wildlife to the greatest extent possible, because it's not compatible with safety for aircraft and people on the ground. And then you go to do anything when IF&W finds out that you have something on the airport, and they mandate you to create wildlife habitat and foster wildlife on the airport. And they told me they don't understand how the two conflict today. And then they tabled it. So I sat there for 4.5 hours for about 7 minutes, and then got to drive back. So in 2 weeks, I'll go do it again.
Oh, my.
But they might have more information.
True, yes, information, that'll help.
Well, this is the public hearing today, not the work session?
It was the work session. Yep.
So I couldn't talk with Representative Mastraka because she was tied up with you today. She was in there, so.
Yep. Nope, that's the update. Sorry, it's not more progress, but we'll get there maybe. We'll see.
So they don't consider 5 deer on the runway an issue?
Those sparrows are really important.
The sparrows are really, yeah, they are, in the blades of the
In
plane.
moths, Yep, yep.
Yeah, oh, okay. I'm sorry for your frustration, but I do know that every time Steve goes to something up there, he comes back with that same look on his face.
It's all in a day's work.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a 5-minute break, so at 6:40, we will return, so please be in your seats. Nope.
Dave was really gentle with him, so, yeah. Yep. No, we've got lots of exciting stuff going on. Yeah. It was kind of like putting around for a while, and now all of a sudden there's too much stuff to do. Yeah, Dave and I we got our work for us on that one. Thank you. I don't know how Dave can dedicate as much time as he has, and he's put a substantial amount of time into it. Yeah.
Bonnie, our paralegal, I noticed since I was a kid, Bonnie, I remember that, I call crying, I can't understand, he just had to.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So good stuff.
So it was approval, something like that.
Which one? No, IDC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Industrial Development Corporation.
We're productive. We don't spend 4.5 hours, 7 minutes.
Yeah. I did tell Dave, though, on the next agenda, I want all the action items first. Because people have jobs, you know, and they need to go right at 10, and if we wait till the very end,
Yeah, I opened it.
yeah, no, we gotta.
Would fly.
I could do that.
Do that, too.
That just means 2.5 hours to get it down.
Right. People used to show up at 7:30.
So was it 8 or 8:30?
Tomorrow's 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the airport committee.
That's that right at the same place.
It's right at my office. I don't think very many people are gonna show up because of the storm. Yeah, 4-wheel drive, yeah.
I mean,
That's right.
It'll be a peaceful day.
All sorts of things.
Yep. Add 10 extra minutes and take it easy.
Hey, I got my renewal too.
But
Some of the. Been doing this since 2011. For renewal. It's 52.
Yeah.
But they don't know that office in campus. Trying another house.
Like,
Long day today. Pushed a couple of those. One's like 12% revenue.
wow, that would be big.
I just wanted it one.
Everybody's asleep. I'll let everybody hear now.
My thing is, even some I couldn't get a 1%. Couldn't get one this year. I had to do it myself.
Yeah, it's very frustrating trying to get anything done up there. I sat because I got there early, and I just went and sat in one for a while, and they want to amend the hunting law.
Could we all take our seats so we can begin?
Gross. He was like, what the heck?
And Ronnie, take it away. Oh, 1 second, Steve.
So Director Hill, Matt Hill, just gave me notice that the Water District had a hydrant that burst right here at Dunkin' Donuts, right on Main Street, which is now flooding Main Street, so it's icing over. So we're calling crew in to get some salt on that as rapidly as possible. So hopefully by the time we get out of the meeting tonight, it will be addressed, but just wanted to make everybody aware, be cautious when you're exiting the building here tonight.
All right. Thank you, Steve. All right.
Okay, the city council budget is up 3.4%, or $2,800. I made some minor adjustments in this budget for fiscal year '26. I adjusted for the increase in dues to MMA and Southern Maine Regional Planning. I increased the supply software for Granicus. Granicus software is now $8,700. Probably something I should have mentioned early on when we started these budget discussions. I created 2 new accounts this year to kind of streamline food and beverages and furniture and fixtures. So in the council budget, I moved $1,000 from supplies because that's generally where we budget in all departments for food or beverages. I wanted to spell that out so it was more clear to the budget committee, to the city council, that it's just for food and beverages. So I did move that from supplies. And furniture and fixtures was generally budgeted in equipment, and now it's spelled out in something called furniture and fixtures. I've gotten a lot of feedback from departments, and they love the new reporting of these couple of accounts. The administration budget is up 2.9%, or $22,000. This covers the 6 positions that are listed above: the city manager, assistant city manager, finance director, executive administrator, communications coordinator, and the finance assistant. Again, just some minor adjustments in this budget. We eliminated the $5,000 that we had in there for consultants. That line in fiscal year '25 was previously used for marketing of the fire stations, and we also reduced the printed supply line by $1,000 for the annual report. And those were really just kind of the minor adjustments in that line. One modification that I made is we now have a contract with Granicus IQ Software. It was originally budgeted non-contract services, and I moved it to contract services to reflect that it was a contract. So that's all I have for the administration budget. Legal services, we budget $135,000 for legal services, $10,000 is non-contract services, and $125,000 is contract services. Again, there's no change from the prior year. We contract with Bernstein Sure. They do contracts, legal reviews, personnel, bonding, TIF, and other. Some of the reimbursements that we get back are TIF, which is reimbursed by the developer. The land bank goes into the special assessment account, and other fees are obviously paid by this agreement. The non-contract services line that we put in there for $10,000 are those legal services and defense fees that are not covered by the actual contract with Bernstein Sure.
And that would be other companies that we've had to use?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Property and casualty insurance is up 9.3% in estimated premiums. Although I wrote down that it's up 9.3%, that's an increase year over year. So what I was trying to kind of relay on this slide is that it's not a 9.3% actual increase from year to year. MMA is on a calendar year, where we're on a fiscal year. So in the current year, we under budgeted what we thought their increase was going to be. So the year over year is really only a 3% increase, or $8,600. The $298,000 proposed premiums through MMA Risk Services covers everything from property, general liability, public officials, automobile, mobile equipment, electronic data processing, law enforcement liability, crime, ambulance, fine arts, extra expense, and excess liability. The breakdown that you have before you, it does not make up the $298,000 that I'm proposing for fiscal year '26. It's actual numbers for fiscal year '25, just in case anybody decides to do the math. It doesn't add up to the $298,000 because that's the breakdown on this current year. Other than that, I'm not so sure there's anything else that I need to say on property and casualty, unless there's anything that you may have questions on.
Does anyone have any questions?
Okay.
And that's because we don't know enough about it.
Okay.
So if I knew enough to ask a question, I would, so
Okay.
I don't want to let you down.
Right. Well, listen, if you dig into this and you have some more questions, we'll bring it up at our budget committee meeting.
All right, thank you. All right, and Steve, I guess it's up to you now.
So I have employees' benefits insurance because nobody wants to touch this. I guess that's why I get it.
You get it because you always put your own spin on it, so you stay.
No, so this is always a very difficult category to do. So the employees' benefits and insurances, budgeted for this year at $8,790,286. Increases that we saw in that this year is health insurance is up by $537,000, or 6.52%. That's comprised of a 7% budgeted increase. We had a 7% increase on the plan this year, so that's $497,000. And we're budgeting 10% increase for the second half of the year. That may be high, but generally it's held. There is a $50,253 increase, or 4.9%, in our main PERS, the main public employee retirement system. Wages are up and rates are up on all of the special plans and the AC plan as well. There's also a $51,000 increase for our first full year of implementation, so $95,000 total for the city's 0.5% increase, 0.5% allocation for the Maine Paid Family Medical Leave Act. So that's the first year of implementation under that. So we're having to account for that fully. Not on the sheet, I do note that under workers' compensation, we had a $39,000 decrease. What I want to point out there is that the staff has been doing an exceptional job in the safety programming. We have some presumptive cases that have finally come off our claims, our history of claims, but they're doing a very good job on those. And that's all I have for employees' benefits and insurances.
All right.
This is one of the major categories between wages and employees' benefits insurance. It's $1.6 million of the $1.9 million increase this year.
Bob?
Yeah, glad to see that the, I'm going to lose my track here. I'm sorry. Last thing you mentioned went down?
Yeah, workers' comp. Yes.
Workers' comp. Thank you very much. Glad to see that has gone down. That is probably the one part of this insurance piece that we can control by trying to control our investment and work to improve safety in the workplace. Both here and on the school side, you know, I complain about that, not to you, but to the schools, because theirs pretty high. Hopefully, they've brought that down a little bit. So congratulations to everybody on that.
Right. Any other questions? Thank you. All right, moving right along, we are now going to, I don't know how many people are speaking for Goodall Memorial Library, but you can come up here. We've got these 3 seats here, so come on down.
It's just me.
Hi.
And I will tell you, I'm brand new at this. Never been done before. Well, I've spoken in Augusta once, so. My name is Julie Norsworthy, and I became the director at Goodall Memorial Library on December 2nd. I put it as I've inherited a junk drawer, but we're cleaning it up, and things are looking much brighter. But I'm here tonight to speak with you about the budget request for $645,000, $330, that was created by Nicole Clark for the upcoming year, and why we do need your support. When I discussed taking this position with my husband, his first reaction was not supportive. Not at all like I had hoped. He was concerned about the relevance of a library. I started pleading my case. We're so much more than books. We're the community center, children's programs, computer services. I could have kept going, but he stopped listening. And in the end, it wasn't my words that convinced him. It was him sitting there patiently waiting to pick me up and watching the people coming in and out of the library. And I get in the truck and he goes, wow, I can't believe there's so many people coming in and out of here. And I tell you this story because I really believe that seeing is believing, and actions speak louder than words. In the budget request you see, there's an inflation rate breakdown. And that's really where I have focused as I look at this, because we haven't had a cost of living raise since, 2017? And as you know, everything around us is going up faster than we can keep up with it. So if we had gotten a consistent cost of living raise over the years, would be looking at a budget of $607,639. It's a lot of money. And I'm sure you're all asking, why in the world would a library need that much money? Staff and wages, like any place else, I'm learning quickly, take up the bulk of it. So in 2023, that was the last time that the library was fully funded, as far as, fully staffed, I should say. And at that time, we spent $436.876. For 2024, the board approved a 3% cost of living raise for the staff, but there was still no increase. That new Paid Family Leave Act adds another $1,440 to our monthly expenses. And so if we could get that increase that Nicole has asked for, that's $52,624 that we could put towards our staff. They've been there a long time. They do a fantastic job. And, you know, I'm sure they could use a raise. The operating budget that was put forth in front of you shows, if you combine it all, it was $155,830. This doesn't include the fact that the snow removal is costing $4,900 this year, and that's as long as he doesn't go over 20 plows. Then it's going to be an extra $200 for each. So it could stop snowing now. That'd be great. You know, actually, there was a decrease in what we would typically spend for books and supplies. So the money goes faster than I ever imagined. The fact that it costs over $600,000 to operate a nonprofit library can be rather discouraging if you lose sight of what you're bringing to the community. We're not here to get rich. We're not here to make a profit. But we're here to lift up the people in this community. As we prepare to move back into 952 Main Street, I'm already looking at, let's increase our programming. What more can we do? We have a vibrant senior community that comes into the library. How can we further support them? We're looking at that. We're partnering with Springvale. We're collaborating for author events and even sharing each other's activities. It's our hope that the literacy volunteers will regroup so that they can continue their work, and when they do, we can provide them the space and support that they need. We're working with the local agencies for ways to better support the behavioral health professionals and the direct support professionals. They depend on the library so that they can best serve their neurodivergent clients. And I know this firsthand and how important the library is to both of those. As I was at BHP, and without Goodall Library, I would not have been able to do my job, especially through the pandemic. Our children's programming has always been one of the most popular events, and I look forward to offering a wider variety of learning experiences that range from storytelling to STEM programs. Once we've made the move back to 952 Main Street, a space has been created for the young adults to gather and engage in the renovated space, with the hope that it will support that age group in our community. Game days and author events that appeal to all ages will continue to be ongoing programs, but we'll strive to provide a place where we can provide a hand up to the unhoused population rather than a handout, as we can help offer them resume preparing, job searches, access to other community resources. And this is one area where we can partner with the Y and Waypoint to better serve them. It's just the beginning of the services that we can provide to the community of Sanford, with an increase in the town appropriation, some solid fundraising, and a conscientious spending from the library. Together, we can do great things.
Any questions?
How you doing? I'm Councilor Transmontane. How many people do you serve this past year down at the lower level there?
Oh, let me dig back in Nicole's notes, because let me tell you, the last 2 months have been a whirlwind. I spent the last week dealing with HUD. Ooh, that's an interesting experience. But we did it, and I know she has put it in here. About 37,500 was the average, and the card holders that come through. I would say average, I'm looking at, I was last time I looked at the door, 320 people a day will come in and out, roughly. It really, so when I was a VHP, I was in that library every day with some of the most challenging behavior kids in America, and they supported me. And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't think I could ever work here. My God, I think I'd be bored. I'm not. And I'm watching the staff, and they're not either. There are moments that it's quiet. It's kind of like a feast or famine. But then I can remember the reference librarian as I'm in there with one of the kiddos, and nobody trusted this kid. Nobody gave him a chance because he was frustrated. But he wanted to know the history of Sanford. And the next thing you know, Jason, who I didn't know at all, says, oh, just a minute. He hops up, he unlocks the special cabinet and hands this young man these books. 3 years later, this kid comes up to me and says, remember that day at the library when he gave me those books? And that left an impact on this kid, and it will make a difference for him. And that's just one of the things that they do there. And they need our support to keep doing it so we can expand it. And I'm not going to, for a minute, sit here and tell you that the library itself can't make some changes and do a little better with the conscientious spending, because we can. We have to. But we can go a lot further with your help.
Any questions? Yes, Jonathan?
Hello, Jonathan Martell. I had a quick question around the presentation, the slides. I saw this sheet, which looks like it covers Springvale. Is that for
That's
both
not
sites?
me.
Yeah, they're coming up next.
Oh, okay.
There's some information that's valuable for their presentation as well, but Springdale's coming up next.
Okay, I got you. So do we have a budget for the library?
I believe one was given to you.
Yes.
I emailed
It was
that
sent to
out.
us by Ronnie. Yep.
Okay.
Backup material.
She's been helping me.
Yes. Yeah, she sent an email to us. How much are you going to be able to replace the assets that you've used towards the construction? I'm looking through your assets.
From what I can tell, we ran maybe 70,000 over budget, but the endowments will be pretty close to where, I mean, within that 70,000, I'm not sure exactly yet because we're not done. And there's been a lot of things that we're working on understanding how they were done ahead of us. It's hard to jump into the middle of something like this. But from what we're looking at, we're going to be back around endowment-wise where we were before we got that 900,000 Rothwell endowment, which was earmarked for a renovation project.
Okay.
So we won't quite break even, but close.
So the Rothwell wouldn't be in the assets that we have? No, it was something, that's the extra that you had to
Right.
put towards the
Right.
project? Okay.
And PPD Construction has done an amazing job with that building, and we're so close to the finish line.
Okay.
And we also have ever-expanding, fresh young faces on our board that are eager to help.
So, yeah, that's one of the things I know the city council does want to have a sit-down, and we want to discuss a contract for the use of the building.
Yeah.
And in that, which is something we very typically do. In this situation, we're shocked that we didn't have something. And in that process, we obviously want to talk about board makeup, because everything happening, I think, is a huge part of not having appropriate board makeup. So you have the
I was on
appropriate
that board, and I
professionalism.
agree.
So, because in the future, this is a city asset that was put at risk by the management failure, I guess, of the project. So we want to make sure that we protect against that in the future, so.
Yeah, well, I have told everybody that as long as I'm around there, there'll never be another project like this again.
Yeah, no,
It shouldn't ever
it's-
be, it shouldn't ever be needed again.
It's something we've had as, general conversation. I'll talk to one counselor or another, and we'll talk about the absolute need to do this going forward. Almost a mandate to do it, as I sit here, so you can let your board know that that's going to become I firmly believe that that's going to be mandatory to get done within the next few months before you have your first payment for the next year for whatever number we decide. That's going to get done.
Right. Well, I think that protects you and the library both, and that's wise.
I'm shocked it's never been done.
Yeah.
We own the American Legion building, we own the Nassau Anderson Learning Center, and we have contracts with the American Legion, and we actually have a board set up for the Nassau and Anderson Learning Center. So this is something we're familiar with, so we definitely want to establish this for the library as well. Funding, I am definitely, I can't speak for my other counselors, I'm a huge library proponent for both Springvale and for Goodall. I was here when we cut your funding, and I'm actually appalled with myself for not making sure that we started to return it at an earlier date, at least keeping up somewhat with inflation. Right. I don't know where we're going to be able to go this year. It's an extremely difficult budget year. We're all coming off the richness of COVID funds, from the state of Maine to cities and towns to nonprofits. We're all a little shell-shocked that the funds we kind of got used to a little bit for a few years, helped us do some amazing things, are no longer going to be available. We don't know what's going to be coming forward. So, and I think it's going to be a discussion with my fellow board members of what numbers we can afford.
Well,
I'd like to do something for an increase for both libraries.
That would be phenomenal, and I will tell you, we will graciously accept whatever funding you can give us. And like I said, Nicole's budget is not mine. And if I had been in there a little longer, I probably would have done it a lot different. But the Zoom call with HUD and making sure I had that quarterly report that they told me I would never have to do, that I had to do, done, took precedent over any revising the budget. Because even though the funds are in our account, I still need to make sure those I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And Ronnie's advice was great.
Yeah, that's probably something that contractually we would have been involved with when you got the grant. We have so much experience managing grants. It would have been nice for you to have that connection with the city during the grant management.
I've sat back and said, what in the world? Half the time, I was brand new. I had no idea what was going on. Little naive, a lot naive, very trusting. And then it reached a point that I'm like, are you guys sleeping at night? Because I'm not. And they're like, no, it's fine. I think you've put the cart before the horse. And I'm sitting back and I'm like, the only thing I can see is the excitement overruled common sense. And it just snowballed. And then, I'm the fourth director, and I was technically supposed to be the general manager. But the state library called and requested a Zoom. 3 hours later, she told me that, well, libraries typically would have a director. What are you doing? And I said, well, I'm doing this and this and this. And she says, okay, so that's your title as the director. So the board agreed and said, yes, that's your title. And
I know you're hoping it's a position that can be phased, like you can phase out and.
Actually, I would stay and do it. I enjoy. I didn't think I would.
You were shell-shocked the last time I saw you.
Oh, I was terrified. But at the same time, I was working 40 hours a week at the Y. I'm on the walkie-talkie to Andy, saying, hey, I need to leave. You need to get somebody in here so I can go to my next step. So my day started at 6 in the morning. But now that I've been there, even if you look over this, if you really do the math in this budget, please know that that's not my math. Mm-hmm. Nicole was a wonderful girl, but budgeting.
We know she did an amazing job picking up.
She did phenomenal, and she was so overwhelmed and mistreated by the board, in all honesty. And that was heartbreaking because She wanted nothing more than to see this place flourish. And she never claimed to be a budgeter, or she didn't want to be the director. She just did her best.
All right. Any questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. And, if the board decides I did an okay job, then they'll let me keep going. And so far, we've got great feedback, and
I'd stay for Springvale. They provide a lot of great backup material.
I
That
won't.
supports your request as well.
It's getting expensive out there. The price of eggs is, enough to scare you.
Okay, Springvale Library, come on down.
You can bring support if you want.
Do I have my PowerPoint?
Yep, should be.
Great, thank you. There we go. Thanks for taking time and allowing us to present. It's been many years since we've had a chance to share with you guys what we do at the library. So thank you for giving us this opportunity. Good libraries build services, but great libraries build a community. We bring people together with intent to make connections, find common ground, and engage together. Whether it's delivering book club selections to a group of neighborhood ladies and to our homebound patrons, our knitting crochet group, our craft programs where people sit with others they don't even know, baby rhyme time where we had 22 babies this week. It was really fun to listen to. And kids playing and dancing along with Tickles the Clown. Community is built at the library. Up above, you'll see some language that we like to use strategically when we plan how the library can meet the needs of our community. And some of the ways that we do this are, up at the top, we have story time with Mermaid Lavinia. Last July, thanks to a grant from the Nassau Alumni Association, Goodall Library and Springville Library were able to collaborate and bring best-selling author Monica Wood.
Great event.
Thank you. To the Little Theater Company.
Awesome.
Yeah, she was great.
She was great.
Down on the bottom, for our homeschool group, we had the firefighters come and teach them fire safety because they don't get that in regular school. And down at the bottom, that's our reindeer craft that we had in December, and we had quite the crew. So by the numbers, I'm not going to read off these numbers to you, but I want to speak to their impact. The economic feasibility of your investment in the library is clear by our circulation values alone. We're also one of the only places in the city that have free community space and a private meeting room for video conferencing, telehealth visits, private meetings such as foster care, and other community events. Going back to enriching lives, we also impacted over 8,700 people who attended programs at the library that included fun, education, literacy, and community engagement. So one of the pieces of information that the State Library asks us for assesses some of the library communities and the funding that are impacted by that. So the City of Sanford and the Village of Springvale are lucky enough to have two strong libraries that were committed to this vibrant community. Our success is not defined separately, but as added value services. The Springvale Library has different and comparative programs that offer greater variety and availability than either one of us could do alone. Separately and together, we meet the needs of our community every day, one program at a time, one book at a time, and one person at a time. So in this graph, you'll see that what we have here is the per capita municipal investment by community library. You'll see Biddeford is right under Goodall and Springville Library and MacArthur Library. They have a similar investment per capita that we receive, but they have a lower population. If you add Goodall and Springville Libraries budget together, you will still have less budgeted than Biddeford. And between our two libraries, we are offering the services of one large library. Since 2017, and I know you heard Julie say this, we've been flat funded, and the percentage of support to our very valuable community resource has dwindled from 58% to 48% of our total budget. This year, we are requesting a 10% budget increase. And if the city was able to, and I understand that resources are finite, you'll see that if we're able to keep up with inflation, our budget numbers would look very different. I don't think you guys will be able to see this slide very well, but it was in your budget packet. There's a few numbers that I wanted to point out. You'll notice in fiscal 2022, we budgeted $26,000 for utilities. In fiscal 26, we have budgeted $50,000. This is just one of the budget lines that has increased dramatically over the last 4 years. Another is our staff salary and health insurance costs, which we are struggling for parity with. I lost one staff position due to these budget constraints and have not been able to replace them. My budget line for books has decreased by 12% and my adult programming by 50%. One other place that we have a very drastic increase for us is our van delivery service. So patrons can borrow books from anywhere, any library in the state of Maine, and they come on a van delivery service that the state library has negotiated a contract with. They renegotiated this contract, which is why we had no van delivery service for 3 months. But when they did that, it over doubled our cost in the van delivery service.
Can I ask you a question on that one? Because I know both you and Goodall use different interlibrary services. Why was it under the same van?
So we use different ILSs, interlibrary, integrated
Right.
library systems.
Yeah.
So while we have small, like sister consortiums, we really have the state of Maine as one. So
It's amazing, and I've explained to a few people here, Goodall has an amazing, like, really broad one. I can get any book through Goodall. And on the, like, you guys have a much smaller one, it's a little more difficult, but still a good interlibrary loan. But I wouldn't want to get, I know Goodall's is more expensive, so I wouldn't want the city of Sanford to lose that. But I will tell you, the people who pick your books for the Springvale Library are excellent.
yes, I
Are
know
better
that.
than Goodall's, I am sorry to say. So the ones you actually purchase for the Springvale Library.
Yeah, I
You guys
have
do
a
great
really
job.
great collection development
So I'll
team.
give you both praise in different directions.
Yeah.
We have a new person buying, so let's see what happens.
So knowing that you used two different services, I was surprised that you were both down for the van contractual conversation.
Right.
It was interesting.
So, yeah, so that's why, like when I say we can get it from anywhere in Maine, we have a small consortium that we borrow from, but it takes the same amount of time for delivery as something from Bangor Public Library. So it's the same 1 week delivery service. But the good news, despite all these numbers, I wanted to point out some of our amazing programs. These are some more pictures of activities for our patrons to learn and grow, and where we offer opportunities to enrich their lives, all for free. The Nora Roberts Foundation funded our winter reading Bundle Up and Read program. That's Sheila on the top, my children's librarian. They're literacy backpacks that go home just like checking out a book. So that's a really good, thank you, Nora Roberts. Valentine's Day coding activities is the next one up there. That was partially funded through a grant from the Maine Library Foundation. And then we had Pictures with Santa and Mrs. Claus. And up on the right-hand side, we have a 12 music concert series in the summer, and that's in collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce. So that's every Friday for the summer, we have a concert. And then we have 50 to 75 people attend, and they just bring their lunch and have fun. And down on the bottom, we collaborated with nursing students from YCCC to provide a teddy bear clinic so the kids learn what it was like to go to the doctor. And then we had a multi-generational drumming circle, which was another event that was really great. I don't have my budget numbers for you up here, but you did get them in your packet, and I can hand them out separately if you'd like.
We do have them. Ronnie sent all of that to us, yeah. Huh. Yes, email from Ronnie, everybody.
The magical email from Ronnie.
Magically email. First percent of the
Yeah,
rest.
I got a question. Well, not a question, but one time I came down to your library, and I'm impressed. You guys do a lot for the community. I know some of the people that work for you. I grew up with Don. You have some good staff. One of the things I wanted for you not say today, what I was so impressed with is the spices that you have. Can you explain that? Because
Sure.
that blew me away for anybody that cooks, so.
Yeah, so it's, so one year we did an international reading program, and we started a spice library, and we have 32 spices, and you can check them out, please don't return them. And people still do that, and it's been 3 years now, and they're still checking out. I think we check out probably 20 a month. So we've had to refill them, but what was really interesting is the Mellon Foundation actually featured our spice library in one of their publications. Yeah, so that was a really nice surprise.
Thinking of all the spices I have that, you get for one recipe.
Exactly.
That's a great place, and I was just so impressed with that, so thank you for
I saw an
clearing.
article once that if you still have a McCormick that looks like this, it should be thrown away. It looks like this, because they've changed the packaging over the years, and I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
wow.
I think I have one of those.
All right, any other questions?
I just had a
Jonathan?
comment. I do appreciate the book sale that you guys do down in Springville. Whenever I see it, I'll try to stop and look around and usually find a few interesting things, so.
My brother-in-law plans a whole weekend vacation around that.
Just so you know, 10% of our budget is fundraising, and that takes a full year for fundraisers to raise 10% of our actual budget.
Thank you. Anything else?
Do you have any fundraisers coming up that you want to give a pitch for?
Sure, I have an online auction coming up in April, and you may get an email from me. Good. And last year we had about 180 items that we put up for auction, and we raised a little over $11,000.
Oh, excellent, excellent. All right.
Thank you
I
for this.
think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Steve, anything else for tonight?
That was everything on the agenda for this evening.
All right, thank you. And we will see next Tuesday. We will have, we have an executive session beforehand and then the regular meeting.
When's our next budget conversation?
Well, there's nothing before March unless you want to schedule one on February 25th, that Tuesday night. We could do some follow-up then.
I wonder if we
Okay.
should do a little council feedback from the conversations.
Yeah, we could do that.
Before Steve does that final pull together of the budget, right?
Okay.
That way you don't